A rough wooden beam stood at the center, its surface splintered and darkened by age. A rope hung from it, swaying slightly in the dry wind, creaking like it remembered other days, other bodies. People gathered in a loose circle, not too close, not too far. Close enough to watch, far enough to feel safe. She stood beneath it, wrists bound, ankles trembling. Her name didn't matter to them anymore. She wasn't a girl, she wasn't hungry, she was an example. She stole bread, someone muttered, loud enough to be heard. The word spread through the crowd like permission. Bread. The loaf lay on the table nearby, half-eaten, crust torn where her fingers had broken it apart. It was small, hard, barely enough for one person. The kind of bread that only mattered when you had nothing else. Her stomach twisted at the sight of it. Hunger burned sharper than fear now, a deep ache that had lived inside her for days. She hadn't eaten since yesterday morning. Maybe longer. Time blurred when hunger stayed. They pulled the rope tighter around her wrists, lifting her arms above her head. The coarse fibers scraped her skin, biting deep. She gasped as her shoulders strained, pain shooting down her arms. "Please," she whispered. The word barely left her lips. No one answered. She searched the faces around her. Old men, women clutching shawls, children peeking from behind skirts. Some looked away, some watched with hard curiosity. A few looked almost relieved it wasn't them. She met the eyes of a woman near the front. Just for a moment, the woman flinched, then turned away. That hurt more than the rope. A man stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Let this be a lesson," he said. "We cannot allow thieves." Her heart pounded so loud she thought it might drown him out. She wanted to scream that she hadn't stolen for greed. That her mother hadn't eaten in 2 days. That her hands had shaken as she reached for the bread. That she'd planned to work it off, beg forgiveness, do anything. But the words stayed trapped inside her chest. The rope was thrown over the beam. The sudden tug lifted her feet from the ground. Pain exploded through her shoulders as her body dropped, the rope catching her weight. She cried out, a sharp, broken sound, legs kicking instinctively for something, anything, to stand on. There was nothing. The crowd murmured. She struggled to breathe. The rope wasn't around her neck, but her arms burned, her chest tightened, her lungs panicked. Her toes brushed the dirt but couldn't find balance. Every movement sent fire through her joints. Tears streamed down her face, dripping onto the ground below. "Please," she sobbed now, louder. "I was hungry." A child whimpered somewhere behind her. Someone laughed nervously. The sun beat down, merciless. Sweat stung her eyes. Her arms began to shake, muscles screaming as they tried, and failed, to hold her weight. Minutes passed, or seconds. She couldn't tell. Her thoughts fractured. Images came in flashes. Her mother's thin face, the empty cupboard, the smell of bread that morning. Hope drained away, replaced by a heavy, sinking truth. They were going to leave her like this. Not until death. Just long enough. Long enough to break something inside her. Long enough to remind everyone watching what happened to people like her. Her head fell forward, chin to chest. Her breathing turned shallow, ragged. The crowd began to thin. People drifted away, satisfied, disturbed, indifferent. The square grew quieter. The rope creaked again. She no longer fought it. Her legs hung limp now, toes barely brushing the earth. Her arms felt numb, like they no longer belonged to her. This is it, she thought dully. This is how it ends. For bread. A shadow stretched across the ground. At first, she thought it was the sun shifting. Then she heard it. Hooves. Slow, steady, unhurried. The sound didn't belong to the square. It came from the road beyond, cutting through the quiet like a question. She lifted her head weakly. At the edge of the crowd, a horse stood still. Dust clung to its legs. A man sat in the saddle, tall and unmoving, his face half hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat. He didn't speak. He just looked at the rope. Then at her. The sound of hooves against the dirt echoed through the square, each step deliberate, heavy with meaning. Conversations died mid-whisper. Heads turned. The crowd shifted, unsure now, like animals sensing something they didn't understand. The man in the saddle dismounted. He moved stiffly, like someone who carried old pain in his bones. His coat was worn, patched at the elbow. Dust clung to his boots. When he removed his hat, The lines in his face became clear, deep grooves carved by sun, years, and loss. He was not young, and he was not afraid. He looked at the rope again, jaw tightening. Then he looked at her. She could barely hold her head up now. Her vision swam, edges darkening. But she felt his gaze, not sharp, not judging. It was steady, human. How long? He asked. No one answered at first. Then the man who had spoken earlier cleared his throat. She stole bread, he said defensively. We're teaching her a lesson. The rancher's eyes flicked to him, just once. A lesson, he repeated quietly. He stepped closer, stopping directly beneath the beam. From here, he could see the rope burns on her wrists, the way her fingers had gone slack, the tremor running through her shoulders as her strength failed. She'll die, someone muttered from the back. Not our problem, another voice replied. The rancher looked around at the crowd. Men who wouldn't meet his eyes. Women who clutched their shawls tighter. Children pulled back by nervous parents. She stole bread, the first man said again, louder now, as if volume could justify cruelty. If we let this go, everyone will steal. The rancher reached into his coat. A collective breath caught. Slowly, deliberately, he pulled out a knife, not large, not threatening. A simple ranch blade, worn smooth from years of honest use. Her heart lurched. Was this worse? He didn't look at her as he opened the blade. He didn't rush. His hands were steady, practiced. The kind of hands that had fixed fences, cut feed, buried loved ones. My wife died last winter, he said suddenly. The words fell into the square like stones. No one had expected that. She starved, he continued, voice even. Not because there was no food. Because there was no mercy. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. He stepped closer to the beam now, close enough that she could smell leather and dust in the faint scent of smoke. He reached up, testing the rope with 2 fingers. She didn't steal, he said. She was proud. Thought asking was worse. He looked up at the girl then. Her face was pale, lips cracked, eyes half lidded with pain. And when I found her, he added, it was already too late. Silence swallowed the square. The rancher turned back to the crowd. So you tell me, he said, voice low but unshaking. What lesson are you teaching? No one answered. The man near the table shifted his weight. If you interfere. The rancher didn't let him finish. In one clean, decisive motion, he raised the knife and sliced through the rope. The fibers snapped. She dropped. For a terrifying split second, gravity took her, and then strong arms caught her before she hit the ground. Pain screamed through her shoulders as blood rushed back into her hands, but the fall was broken, softened. She sobbed, a sound pulled from somewhere deep and broken. The rancher lowered her carefully to the dirt, supporting her back, easing her down like she was something fragile, like she mattered. There, he murmured, I've got you. The crowd erupted. You can't do that. She broke the law. You'll answer for this. The rancher didn't look up. He shrugged off his coat and wrapped it around her shoulders, shielding her from the sun, from the stairs, from the world. She needs water, he said calmly. No one moved. He looked up then, eyes sharp as flint. Now, a woman stepped forward shakily with a cup. He took it, held it to the girl's lips. Small sips, he said gently. Easy. She drank, coughing weakly, tears falling into the cup. Her hands twitched uselessly in her lap. That's it, he whispered. You're alive. Stay with me. Behind them, the square buzzed with anger and fear and confusion. But around them, there was a bubble of stillness, just a man and a girl and the quiet defiance of compassion. When she could finally breathe again, she looked up at him. Why? She whispered. He met her gaze. Because I know what hunger does, he said. And I won't watch it kill another soul. He helped her to her feet, keeping himself between her and the crowd. We're leaving, he said. No one stopped him. Because sometimes, mercy is louder than cruelty. The road away from the square was narrow and quiet, winding through dry fields and low hills. The sounds of the crowd faded quickly, as if the land itself wanted to forget what had happened there. She rode behind him on the horse, arms wrapped weakly around his waist. Every movement sent a dull ache through her shoulders, but the pain felt distant now, muted by shock, by relief, by the strange safety of motion. The rancher kept one hand steady on the reins, the other resting lightly over hers, a silent reminder that she was still there. Still alive. They didn't speak for a long while. The wind carried the smell of earth and grass, and somewhere in the distance a bird cried out as dusk settled over the land. The sky softened from harsh blue to pale gold, then to the gentle purple of evening. At last, the horse slowed. A small ranch house came into view, low and weathered, standing alone against the wide horizon. Smoke curled faintly from the chimney. A single light glowed in the window. "Home," the rancher said quietly. He helped her down with care, bracing her when her legs threatened to give way. She leaned against him, embarrassed by her weakness, but he didn't comment. He simply adjusted his grip until she found her balance. Inside, the house was warm and simple. A wooden table, 2 chairs, a shelf lined with jars. The faint smell of stew lingered in the air, comforting and real. He guided her to the chair nearest the fire and knelt in front of her, inspecting her wrists. The rope burns were angry red, some skin broken. He hissed softly, "I'm sorry they did this to you." She shook her head. "I'm sorry I stole." He looked up at her then, eyes steady. "You didn't steal," he said. "You survived." He cleaned her wounds with water and a cloth, gentle but thorough. She flinched once, then forced herself to relax. No one had touched her like this in a long time, not with care. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated, then answered. "Eliza." "Mine's Thomas," he said. "You're safe here, Eliza." The words settled over her like a blanket. He ladled stew into a bowl and set it in front of her. The smell made her hands shake. "Slow," he reminded her again. "Your stomach's not used to kindness yet." She smiled weakly at that and obeyed, each spoonful warming her from the inside out. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she ate, not from pain this time, but from something close to gratitude that felt too big for her chest. When she finished, exhaustion claimed her completely. Thomas guided her to the small bed in the next room, tucking a quilt around her shoulders. "Rest," he said. "We'll talk tomorrow." She slept deeper than she had in weeks. Morning came quietly. Sunlight filtered through the thin curtains, painting the room in gold. For a moment, she panicked, memory crashing back in pieces, but then she smelled bread. Fresh bread. She sat up slowly, joints aching, and followed the scent to the kitchen. Thomas stood at the table, slicing a loaf, steam rising from it. He looked up and smiled gently. "Good morning." Her eyes filled instantly. "You don't have to cry," he said softly. "I know," she replied. "But I might anyway." They sat together, eating in silence. The bread was warm, soft, real. No fear followed each bite. After a while, she spoke. "Why did you really help me?" Thomas set his knife down. He considered the question. "Because when my wife died," he said slowly, "I learned something too late. Hunger isn't a crime, and mercy doesn't make the world weaker, it makes it survivable." She nodded, absorbing his words like nourishment. "What will happen to me now?" she asked quietly. "That's up to you," he said. "You can stay here, work if you want, rest if you need, or leave when you're ready. No conditions, no debt." Her throat tightened. "Why would you trust me?" He met her gaze. "Because someone once trusted me when I didn't deserve it. And it saved my life." Outside, the wind moved gently across the fields. The rope, the square, the cruelty, they felt far away now. Not forgotten, but no longer holding her. She looked at her hands, scarred, shaking, alive. "I'd like to stay," she said. "At least for a while." Thomas nodded once, a quiet acceptance. "Then you're home," he said. And in that small ranch house, built on loss and kindness, 2 broken lives began again, not with punishment, but with bread freely given.